Hello, nutrition enthusiasts, and welcome to the Diet NPO podcast. My name is Zach, and I'll be your host. Wanted to open up today with a couple of really nice updates for everyone here. One of my biggest updates right now is that I am changing jobs, and I'm changing the job market. So no longer will I be giving you examples as a cancer care dietitian or as a clinical RD anymore. I'm going into the world of food service. I'm going to be going back to my alma mater, where I did my undergrad, my grad school, and that's at Illinois State University, which is in Bloomington, Illinois, where I live, basically. So it's a great opportunity. I'm really going to be missing the place that I was at, and I'm ready for some new experiences. But it's going to be so hard to leave the cancer center. Yesterday was my last day there, and it was tremendously hard to leave all of the patients, all of the staff members, and all of the relationships that I've really built over the time there. But I am just really excited for a new opportunity, and mostly, I'm just excited not to have to commute anymore. I'd like more time with my partner, I'd like more time at home, more time to hang out with my dogs, and so I'm greatly looking forward to a new opportunity, and it's only about a 15-minute bike ride from my house even. So I'm looking forward to getting out there once it gets a little bit warmer in spring here is what I'm thinking. Since we were talking a little bit, I know I've been really lazy on social media. I go through phases of doing that. I don't know about you, but sometimes it's just hard to keep up with for me. One of the things that I still, even despite that I don't look on social media or Instagram as much as I should, is I've been still stumbling upon what everyone else stumbles upon, which is somehow you have to know about the Liver King. I don't know why I bring this up, but the Liver King was just something that still pops up all the time in social media all the time. Maybe you're not familiar with it, and now you get to blame me as being the reason of why you know any of this stuff anyway. But with the Liver King, the big thing that kind of happened was there was this guy who was going out, like a lot of nutrition enthusiasts, fitness enthusiasts, I should say, is people who are going out and saying that their brand or their lifestyle is the lifestyle to do, right? We've heard this adage before, I think. His big thing, if you've never seen, was his major thing was trying to eat organ meats all the time. And he said that these organ meats would have so much vitamins, so much minerals, and we're saying things like liver, heart, testes, all kinds of like different organ meats of different types of animals, right? So what he was saying was also is that, and this guy is just ripped, okay? He's just ripped to shreds. He's just so jacked looking that you go, it's a little bit questionable. I think anyone with eyes possibly was thinking, this guy might be on steroids potentially. I am no expert, and so you really shouldn't ask me, but you could ask around and people would probably say, yeah, that's probably what I thought when I saw that guy in pictures. But he claimed never to take steroids because he said the foods that he was eating have natural vitamins and minerals that boost his testosterone more than anyone else, which I did a little digging in, and there is some truth to that. Those organ meats have great vitamins, great minerals for boosting that testosterone. But turns out that there was a bit of a leak out there, and it turns out that actually taking human growth hormone and taking steroids and taking testosterone also helps boost up testosterone a little bit. And so that's kind of what's been happening out there is it's kind of that fallout from there. But it was such a big discussion about testosterone, and I wanted to do my research about what vitamins and minerals really help to boost testosterone as well, just see what these claims are true about organ meats. And so today, we were really going to talk about hormones, you and I, and we're going to go through all of the hormones of the body to help make sure we have all of these mapped out together, know which ones we need to know for the RD exam, know where they come from, and know what they do. Another shout out that I wanted to give out is that I finally, on November 30th, I did my big announcement of who won the free tutoring hours for the Diet NPO podcast by sharing that to their Instagram story. And I want you guys to all check out Thrive with Des. Des is on Instagram, and you can check out Des. I know a good RD to be when I see one. Desiree is the winner of the Diet NPO podcast giveaway, so I just want to congratulate them, and I'm looking forward to working with another great RD to be. But let's dive into a little bit of these hormones. I've been pretty hormonal and a little upset about leaving the cancer center. Let's learn a little bit more about all these different types, shall we? We're going to try like a top-down approach, and we're going to talk about hormones that are digestive-based and ones that are not digestive-based. What I'm going to start with here is going to be the pituitary gland. And the pituitary gland you might not be as familiar with, But this is the master gland of the endocrine system, and it includes a few of the hormones in our body that are secreted from this, a good amount of them actually. A couple you should be familiar with is like growth hormone, like human growth hormone. This is secreted from the pituitary gland that tells the body to build up muscle mass, to build up strength, to build up size, give yourself big bones, big strong joints. That's what human growth hormone does, and that's what it's doing in this case from the pituitary gland. Another you would know about is prolactin and oxytocin. Prolactin is the hormone that is produced in pregnant people to help produce the breast milk, and then oxytocin is the hormone. Think of relaxing with oxytocin. Oxytocin is the hormone that relaxes to let the breast milk secrete for baby. So that's kind of where those hormones are coming from. And then one more big player here you should know is anti-diuretic hormone. Break that down with me. Anti against diuretic hormone. This is preventing diuresis. What is diuresis and what do diuretics do? They make me urinate, right? So we're saying anti-diuretic hormone from the pituitary gland is going to help to reabsorb sodium and reabsorb that water. So now you know when you run into those, if you were to on the exam, you know how to handle those. We're also going to talk about another one, such as the thyroid. Maybe you know someone or you have your own experiences with hyperthyroidism. Really common, well, I wouldn't really say really common, but a common disorder that you can certainly see in people. The thyroid hormone secretes thyroxine. This is kind of like the thyroid hormone, thyroxine is. With people with hyperthyroidism, they have high levels of thyroxine. Thyroxine is the hormone that causes that increased metabolic rate. So that's why with hyperthyroidism, they're much more likely to be losing weight because their calorie use is so high, their basal metabolic rate is so high. Versus hypothyroidism, hypo meaning low, they have a lower metabolic rate because they have less thyroxine secreting through there. So you should be familiar with those types of players a little bit. And another one such as calcitonin. Calcitonin is a hormone from the thyroid that tells the kidneys to secrete calcium. So if I have really high blood levels of calcium in my body, the thyroid hormone is going to say, hey kidneys, why don't you kick a little of that calcium out of here so it lowers the blood levels. So you know calcitonin from the thyroid gland is going to be helping with that as well. We're still up in that head and neck area, so I'm thinking we're going to stick with a couple hormones that are still up here, such as epinephrine and norepinephrine. You should know these as the fight or flight stress hormones a lot of the time. And I should be familiar with this, as I'm going to be taking a new job working with students with food allergies, so I should know what epinephrine does. So it is a stress hormone, but what epinephrine does when someone takes it, or if it's secreted from the kind of like that adrenal cortex area, it basically tells the smooth muscle of the lungs to relax. So that's kind of the big piece that epinephrine will do there to help open up so you can breathe, especially if you're having like anaphylaxis. It really makes sense as to why this would do. And that was the adrenal medulla that's actually secreting that epinephrine and norepinephrine. And the norepinephrine is another one of those stress hormones, and that's usually the one that causes like high amounts of blood pressure, high heart contractibility, alertness, dilated pupils, kind of that type of stuff when we're going through that. And then the adrenal cortex that's that little one that sits on top of the kidneys basically. And the adrenal cortex sits on top of the kidneys and does a couple different things that are super important. One of which is it secretes aldosterone. You should know about aldosterone just a little bit because you should be familiar with the RAS system. The RAS system being that system where it's telling our body to reabsorb sodium and reabsorb water. And that's what aldosterone does. Comes from that adrenal cortex, goes to the kidneys, and signals, hey, we need to reabsorb some calcium and reabsorb some water, don't we? That's one good one we should definitely know about. Since we're talking about the RAS system, you should also probably know about the other A, which is angiotensin 2. This is another one of those of those kind of hormones from this whole like adrenal RAS system idea. Is because it's coming from the liver and then telling the RAS system to kind of kick off. So that also acts to reabsorb sodium and reabsorb water. That's that angiotensin as that big one there. We've gone through a lot of those different hormones there, and we only just have a couple of these little players to go through. The ovaries are responsible for the production of estrogen, which helps promote female sex characteristics. We know that. And I always think of this as like the pre-pregnancy hormone. That's commonly what I go through. Because there's a second one that sounds similar called progesterone. Progesterone is the one that maintains pregnancy. And this is also the one that helps with the stimulation of breast milk production is the kind of the thought process there. Other side of the coin is we're talking about testosterone now. Testosterone most commonly being affected with those like male sex characteristics such as deeper voice, facial hair, especially like facial hair growth all over the place, strength, muscle, things like that is what testosterone is primarily into. And the Liver King, again, he was saying that those foods he was doing was boosting up his testosterone a lot, but also the steroids were too. So who knows which one it was. Another one was the vitamin D. Remember, vitamin D is a hormone as well as being one of those fat-soluble vitamins. And vitamin D is absorbed into the skin, moves to the liver, and then finally, where does it go for its final step of activation? Well, you should know that will be your kidneys.
And one more hormone of the body that we'll talk until we talk about the digestives is going to be leptin. Because leptin is not necessarily a digestive hormone. Leptin is secreted from adipose tissue. This is that obesity hormone that we see that is very high in people with high amounts of body fat, which makes sense. If you have high amounts of body fat, you have more secretion of leptin. What leptin should be doing is signaling the body to consume less food or have higher satiety so that we don't eat as much and put on more body fat. That's leptin's big role. Now that we've exhausted all those non-digestives, let's really get into the digestives now, which I feel more familiar with. It's a lot more fun to talk about and kind of put those pieces together. We're going to start again from the top down. I'm going to eat a meal of protein, carbohydrates, and fats. Those are going to travel down into my stomach, and then what happens? Well, in the stomach, we are going to have the hormone that is gastrin, because it's related to the gastric system. Gastrin will be, and that's going to signal those parietal cells to release the hydrochloric acid, which will then lead to the pepsinogen converting to the pepsin and digesting our proteins. So gastrin is a major hormone that we're going to think of in the stomach a lot of the time. Another one that starts with a G that you can remember here is ghrelin. That's kind of that other side of the hunger hormone thing that we talked about a little bit earlier with leptin. Ghrelin is the hunger hormone, meaning if I am very, very hungry, I'm going to have very high levels of ghrelin. Versus if I just had a big Thanksgiving meal, I'm going to have pretty low levels of ghrelin generally because I am pretty full. I don't need to be eating anymore. And that's also going to be in the stomach because now it's telling us to stop eating as much, right? Okay. Then as that food travels even more down, it's going to go into the small intestine. And as it goes into the small intestine, there's several hormones that come from the small intestine to really trigger everything that needs to happen after. And they are going to go, the two major players I'll talk about are CCK and secretin. They both end up going to the pancreas to tell the pancreas what to do. But remember, they came from the small intestine. Came from the small intestine and they told the pancreas to go ahead and release some of its enzymes in the bicarb. The CCK, cholecystokinin, is the hormone that will be telling the pancreas to release the pancreatic amylase, pancreatic lipase, as well as our proteases such as trypsin and chymotrypsin. It also told the gallbladder to go ahead and contract and release its bile for help digesting a lot of those fat droplets. The other one is secretin, and secretin be secreting that bicarb. That's what secretin is responsible of. It helps it secrete that bicarb because we have all of that acidic chyme coming from the stomach into the small intestine, right? We don't want it to burn a hole in our whole small intestinal tract. So that's why the bicarb is going to come in, neutralize that pH, right? And both of those guys usually try to act to slow down the stomach from secreting more stuff Basically, once we know that food is coming in, it's going to start to tell the stomach to, hey, chill your roll a little bit. We've got this taken care of. We don't need you to keep releasing all this stuff in here. We'll take it easy. Another one is going to be GIP, which is gastric inhibitory peptide. If you think of gastric inhibitory, your brain should already be thinking, well, it's inhibiting something gastric. Gastric means the stomach, so it's doing kind of what that CCK secretin did, which is it's decreasing the digestion and release of all that stuff from the stomach. It's trying to slow that all down so that we can actually digest and absorb the things that we really need to. Now, don't forget also, when we were talking about the pancreas, there's two major hormones that you should know about, and that's our glucagon and insulin. You should know which one is fed and which one is fasted. Remember, if I've just eaten a big, giant meal, I'm going to have a lot of insulin secretion. A lot of insulin secretion is going to mean it's going to help my cells to open up and let that glucose into the cell. So it's going to help lower my blood glucose. That's why I take insulin. Another one is going to be glucagon. Glucagon is the other side of that coin. This is the fasted hormone that is going to be secreted in very high amounts when I am in a fasted or starved state. And it's going to be telling my liver, hey, you need to break down that glycogen into glucose. Or it's going to be telling my fat cells to break down so we can use stuff for energy. So it's going to help raise my blood sugars in that regard. So those are the major hormones that I would go through and be familiar with for the RD exam, knowing what they do, knowing where they come from, where they act, and you will be all set through there. But let's apply it with a couple practice questions just to make sure you really have these down. Number one, which of the following hormones increases reabsorption of water and sodium? Is it vitamin D, aldosterone, ghrelin, or somatostatin? Vitamin D, aldosterone, ghrelin, or somatostatin? Well, if I think through here, I'm thinking increased reabsorption of water and sodium. Let's do my A, B, C, and D to be really sure. Vitamin D, I don't remember having anything to do with water and sodium, really. It's even fat soluble, so I would probably rule out vitamin D. I don't think it'll be a good fit. Aldosterone, I do believe, has something to do with absorbing water and sodium. I'll hold on to that in a minute. C, ghrelin. Ghrelin is our hunger hormone, but I don't think it's going to help me to reabsorb water and sodium. I'm going to rule it out. And somatostatin, that's another one of the hormones that are in the digestive tract. And somatostatin is kind of one of those that helps to slow things down, helps our insulin to release, but I don't think it's going to have anything to do with water and sodium, so I think aldosterone, which is in that RAS system, will be very responsible for the reabsorption of water and sodium. Number two, secretion of hydrochloric acid from stomach parietal cells is triggered by lack of glucose, carbohydrates, gastrin hormone, or water. Secretion of HCl from parietal cells is triggered by what? Well, I don't think it's lack of food, because if I recall, there's a hormone that really helps to secrete when there's food coming into the stomach so that we can really get the, why would we have the hydrochloric acid secreting if there's no food there? What would be the point of that? So I don't think it's lack of food. I don't think it's carbohydrates either, because the carbs don't have a lot to do with the stomach in general. So I'm not too concerned about that. So I'm between gastrin hormone and water, and gastrin hormone by far will be your best fit for that answer, because we think of gastric, we think of gastrin, and that'll be the hormone responsible there. Number three, low levels of blank would be present after a Thanksgiving meal. Low levels of blank would be present in a patient with low amounts of body fat. So let's take a look. Low and low is what I'm thinking here. All right, so is it between A, ghrelin and leptin, B, leptin and ghrelin, C, CCK and leptin, or D, glucagon and ghrelin? Okay, all right, so let's picture it like this through here. For number three, if I said, let's start with the top one. So low levels of ghrelin, so low amounts of hunger, would be present after a Thanksgiving meal. Yeah, I'd say that's true, because we'd say, all right, I just ate a big meal, I'm not hungry, my ghrelin should be very low. And low levels of leptin would be present in a patient with low amounts of body fat.
I think that answer fits pretty well. And my thought process is that if someone has low amounts of body fat, they're going to have low amounts of leptin because leptin is secreted from the body fat. So let's hold on to that. Low levels of leptin would be present after a Thanksgiving meal. Low levels of ghrelin would be present in a patient with low amounts of body fat. That does not make sense to me. It doesn't really fit because the leptin is the hormone that's really going to be about the level of body fat tissue, not about necessarily how hungry I am, although it does try to act on that. I don't think it's a good fit, but I can always hold on to it. Low levels of CCK would be present after a Thanksgiving meal. Low levels of leptin would be present. Nope, because low levels of CCK, we probably have high amounts of CCK after that Thanksgiving meal, don't you think? It would be a lot of CCK because we're doing a lot of digestion, a lot of absorption type stuff. So that one's out for me. And then low levels of glucagon would be present after a Thanksgiving meal. Okay, that's kind of true because we'd have lots of insulin if we were going to have like a Thanksgiving meal. And then low levels of ghrelin would be present in a patient with low amounts of body fat. Nope, that's not going to be true, right? The ghrelin is not going to have to do with the body fat. It's just a hunger hormone. So that ties it up for our practice questions here. And we know that low levels of ghrelin will be present after a Thanksgiving meal. And then low levels of leptin will be present in someone with low amounts of body fat. Today on the What's Eating You segment, I really wanted to top it off and give a good shout out to my job where I was in Decatur as a clinical RD. I'm going to miss that place a lot, and one thing I'm definitely going to miss is their desserts a lot of the time. Nothing's like getting like a perfect little dessert midway through your day after you've like worked through like 10, 11 patients and been around and you just need a break of some kind. And so they had these desserts, and one of the favorites we would always go for is their pudding cups. And I know, sounds so simple on the What's Eating You, but these pudding cups were great. It was always just like chocolate pudding cups where they would put this like middle layer. It's all about what you put on top of it though. So they would do like crumbled Oreo or crumbled Heath bar or toffee, and then they top it off with like whipped topping on there. And so you could just take that back to your office and pick up on your charting right where you were and just kind of shove pudding in the whole time. And it was a little pathetic, but it really helped out on some of those hard days, I think. So that's kind of my tribute to that place and how much I'm going to be missing that hospital and that cancer center. Very broken up about it, but looking forward to the next steps. But that's going to wrap it up for the What's Eating You segment and for the Diet NPO podcast today. Hope you really enjoyed coming to learn about hormones with me. Hope you took something you can use for the exam. Remember, continue to rate, review, subscribe. Check me out at Zach_snacks. You know, RD exam season is still hot. It's not slowing down. So continue to check me out, rate and review. Let's spread the word. Keep growing up for all of our nutrition enthusiasts out there. I'll catch you guys later. And hey, have a great day.